I'm Amanda Wright, 34, a real estate agent who worked her way up from nothing to afford my dream $630,000 condo in downtown Boston. My controlling parents never supported my career choice, but they sure wanted my property. What they didn't expect was that champagne bottle they smashed against my head at my brother's birthday party would lead to me discovering a secret about their house. Before I tell you how I ended up with a champagne bottle to my head at my brother's party, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe if you want more stories about standing up to toxic family members. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, my childhood looked perfect from the outside. Our colonial-style house, with its manicured lawn and white picket fence, was the envy of the neighborhood. My father, Robert Wright, worked as a senior loan officer at a prestigious bank, while my mother, Catherine, maintained our home with military precision. But behind closed doors, that perfectionism morphed into something darker. From my earliest memories, every aspect of my life was controlled. My grades weren't just expected to be good, they had to be perfect. Anything less than an A resulted in privileges revoked and hours of additional studying. My appearance was scrutinized daily, with my mother selecting my outfits and criticizing my hair, weight, and posture constantly. "Stand up straight, Amanda. No one likes a girl with slouched shoulders," she would say while physically pushing my shoulders back until it hurt. The control extended to every penny I earned. When I was 14, I started babysitting for neighbors on weekends. My parents insisted I hand over every dollar I made for my college fund. The same happened with my job at the local ice cream shop when I turned 16. Every paycheck went straight into their hands. "We're teaching you financial responsibility," my father would say as he pocketed my hard-earned money. "This will all be waiting for you when you go to college." My privacy was non-existent. My mother read my diaries regularly, monitored my phone calls, and screened my friends. Sally Jenkins was deemed too rebellious after she dyed her hair purple. Megan Foster was from the wrong side of town. By high school, I'd learned to keep my real thoughts locked away where no one could find them. Meanwhile, my younger brother Daniel received completely different treatment. For years my junior, he was the golden child who could do no wrong. When he brought home B grades, my parents celebrated his effort. When he quit the swim team because he didn't enjoy it, they supported his decision. The contrast was stark and painful. "Your brother is a boy," my mother explained once when I questioned the double standard. "The world expects different things from him." The breaking point came during my senior year of high school. I'd been accepted to both my parents' alma mater, an Ivy League university, and the state college with a strong business program. The state school offered me a partial scholarship. When I announced my decision to attend the state college, my parents erupted. "We didn't raise you to be mediocre," my father shouted. Right family members attend Ivy League schools. When I stood my ground, they delivered their ultimatum: choose their preferred school or receive zero financial support. That night, I discovered the truth about my college fund when my father admitted they had spent most of it on home renovations and luxury vacations. I chose independence. At 18, I moved into a dingy dormitory at the state college with exactly $347 to my name. I immediately found 3 jobs: morning shifts at the campus coffee shop, evening waitressing at a local restaurant, and weekend hours at the university library. I slept 4 hours a night and ate ramen noodles more often than not. During my junior year, I met Marissa Lawson, a successful real estate agent who came to give a guest lecture in my business marketing class. Something about her confidence and straightforward approach resonated with me. After class, I approached her with questions and, to my surprise, she offered me an internship at her small agency. "You've got hunger in your eyes," she told me. "That's something I can't teach." I graduated with my business degree despite my parents' constant predictions of failure. They didn't attend my graduation. Instead, I received a card with a $20 bill inside and a note saying, "Hope this was worth it." With Marissa's recommendation, I landed an entry-level position at a small real estate firm in Boston. My first apartment was a studio the size of a walk-in closet, with a shower that leaked and windows that rattled. But it was mine, paid for with my own money. I worked 80-hour weeks, taking every client nobody else wanted. I showed properties at 6 in the morning and midnight. I researched neighborhoods obsessively to become an expert. After 8 months, I made my first big commission on a luxury condo sale to a tech executive. Instead of celebrating, I put every penny into savings. For 6 years, I lived frugally, building my client base and reputation. I switched to a larger agency with better commission rates. I upgraded to a slightly larger apartment, but still saved aggressively. Every financial decision was calculated toward one goal: buying my own place. When I turned 30, I had enough saved for a down payment. After months of searching, I found it, a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in one of Boston's most desirable neighborhoods. The $630,000 price tag represented every sacrifice, every late night, every missed social event of the past decade. When I signed those closing papers, I cried tears of pure pride. Throughout these years, I maintained minimal contact with my parents. Holiday phone calls and occasional text messages were the extent of our relationship. My brother Daniel and I stayed closer. He had followed our parents' preferred path, attending medical school and becoming a doctor. Despite our different journeys, we supported each other. By the time this story takes place, I had built a comfortable life. My career was thriving, my condo was becoming a true home, and I had been dating Jason Martinez, a kind and supportive financial analyst, for nearly 2 years. For the first time, I felt truly secure. What I didn't realize was how quickly security can be shattered. The gold embossed invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Thick cream-colored cardstock announcing Dr. Daniel Wright's 30th birthday celebration at my parents' address. I ran my fingers over the raised lettering, debating whether to attend. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel before I could decide. "Please come. It won't be the same without you. I promise to run interference with Mom and Dad." I sighed, typing back. Last time didn't go so well. The last time had been Thanksgiving 2 years earlier, which ended with my mother criticizing my career choice throughout dinner and my father lecturing me about wasting potential over pumpkin pie. I'd left early with a migraine and a renewed commitment to limited contact. "I know," Daniel responded, "but I'm turning 30. Once in a lifetime. Please." I couldn't say no to my brother. Despite our different relationships with our parents, he had always been my ally. When we were kids, he would sneak ice cream to me when I was sent to bed without dinner for attitude problems. During college, he called regularly when our parents wouldn't. That evening, I discussed the invitation with Jason over dinner at his apartment. "I should go, right? For Daniel?" I asked, pushing pasta around my plate. "Family is complicated," Jason said, reaching for my hand. "But you might regret not being there for your brother. I'll come with you for moral support." His offer lifted a weight from my shoulders. "My knight in shining armor," I joked. The next weekend, we went shopping for Daniel's gift. I wanted something meaningful that showed how proud I was of him completing his medical residency. We found it at an upscale watch store, a beautiful timepiece he had admired months ago. It cost nearly $1,000, but Daniel was worth it. Selecting an outfit proved more challenging. I wanted to look successful but not flashy, attractive but not in a way my mother could criticize. I finally settled on a cream-colored cocktail dress with subtle gold accessories. The night before the party, disaster struck. Jason called, his voice hoarse. "I'm so sorry, Amanda. I've got some kind of stomach virus. There's no way I can make it tomorrow." My heart sank. "Don't worry about it. Just focus on getting better." "Are you sure you'll be okay going alone?" he asked between coughs. "I'll manage," I promised, more confidently than I felt. Saturday arrived with perfect spring weather. I drove the 40 minutes to my parents' affluent suburb, anxiety building with each mile. Their house looked even more imposing than I remembered. New landscaping adorned the front yard, and several luxury cars lined the circular driveway. I parked on the street and sat in my car for 10 minutes, gathering courage and repeating the mantra my therapist had suggested. I am an adult. I control how I respond. I can leave anytime. Finally, I grabbed Daniel's gift and approached the front door. Before I could ring the bell, it swung open to reveal my brother's smiling face. Mandy, you made it. He pulled me into a tight hug, using my childhood nickname. Happy birthday, Danny, I said, returning his embrace. Inside, the house was filled with people, many I didn't recognize. My parents stood near the fireplace, champagne flutes in hand, deep in conversation with another couple. My mother wore an expensive-looking navy dress with a pearl necklace I hadn't seen before. My father's custom suit screamed of recent purchase. When they noticed my arrival, their greetings were cordial but cold. Amanda, my mother said, air-kissing near my cheek. That dress is interesting. Hello, Mother. Father. I nodded at them both. The house looks different. New furniture? Just a few updates, my father replied dismissively. Daniel, introduce your sister around. Daniel led me through the crowd, introducing me to his colleagues and friends. I met Stephanie Bennett, his girlfriend of 8 months, a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a genuine smile. We clicked immediately. Daniel talks about you all the time, she confided. I feel like I already know you. As we chatted, I spotted my mother's sister, Aunt Helen, by the buffet table. Unlike my parents, Aunt Helen had always shown me unconditional support. She sent care packages during college and called regularly to check on me. Amanda, she exclaimed, hugging me warmly. Look at you, so successful and beautiful. We caught up quickly, but something in her expression seemed worried. When Daniel and Stephanie moved away to greet new arrivals, Aunt Helen leaned closer. How are things with your parents? She asked quietly. Same as always, I shrugged. Cold but civil. She frowned slightly. They've been acting strange lately. Your father keeps talking about investment problems, and your mother seems more on edge than usual. Before I could ask for details, my mother appeared, asking Aunt Helen to help with something in the kitchen. As the party continued, I noticed more signs of my parents' affluence. Catered food from Boston's most expensive restaurant, a professional bartender serving top-shelf liquor, and subtle but costly renovations throughout the house. I overheard my father bragging to his golf buddies about Daniel's new position at a prestigious hospital. Following in the Wright family tradition of excellence, he boasted, pointedly ignoring my presence nearby. My first direct confrontation came when I was examining family photos on the mantel. My mother appeared beside me, martini in hand. You've gained weight, she observed. Real estate must not keep you very active. I took a deep breath. Actually, I've been training for a half marathon. She raised an eyebrow skeptically and changed subjects. Is that boyfriend still in the picture? James. Jason, I corrected. Yes, almost 2 years now. He's homesick today. Convenient, she murmured, walking away. Later, my father cornered me near the drinks table. So, is this real estate thing still working out? Not too late to get a real degree, you know. Instead of taking the bait, I smiled pleasantly. It's going extremely well, actually. I closed on a waterfront property last month. 7-figure commission. His expression soured, but a family friend nearby overheard and asked about the current market. Soon I had a small group interested in my insights on Boston real estate trends. I couldn't help noticing my parents' annoyed glances as I held court. Daniel flitted between groups, clearly trying to keep everyone happy. The strain showed in his tight smile and the way he kept checking that our parents and I remained in separate conversations. At one point, he pulled me aside. Thanks for being here. It means a lot. I wouldn't miss it, I assured him. Though it seems like you invited half of Boston. He laughed nervously. Mom and Dad insisted on making it a big event. You know how they are about appearances. As the afternoon progressed, I managed to enjoy myself despite the undercurrent of tension. Then Aunt Helen caught my arm as I headed to the bathroom. Be careful, she whispered. Your parents were asking me about your finances earlier. Very odd questions. Her warning sent a chill through me, but I didn't have time to ask for details before she was called away. Little did I know how prophetic her concern would prove to be. I had just refilled my sparkling water when my mother appeared at my elbow, her smile tight and practiced. Amanda, dear, your father and I would love to catch up with you properly. Come join us in the kitchen for a moment. Her tone was pleasant, but her grip on my arm brooked no argument. In the kitchen, my father stood leaning against the marble island, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. "There's our girl," he said with unusual warmth. "Quite a gathering for your brother, isn't it?" I nodded, immediately suspicious of their friendliness. My parents didn't do warm family chats without an agenda. "Daniel deserves it," I said cautiously. "He worked hard for his medical degree." "Yes, we're very proud," my mother agreed, refilling her wine glass. "Speaking of careers, how is the real estate market these days?" "Still holding strong in Boston. It's competitive but profitable if you know the neighborhoods," I answered. My father nodded with sudden interest. "Fascinating business property. Always a good investment when you choose wisely." "Which areas are performing best right now?" my mother asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Downtown and the Seaport District are still hot. Prices keep climbing despite predictions of a cool down." My father exchanged a meaningful look with my mother. "You must see some beautiful properties in those areas." "I do," I confirmed, increasingly wary of their interest. "Actually, I recently purchased a condo in Back Bay." The change in their demeanor was immediate and dramatic. My mother's eyebrows shot up, and my father straightened from his slouched position. "You bought property?" "In Back Bay." My mother set down her wine glass. "When did this happen?" 3 months ago. It's a 2-bedroom with a view of the Charles River." "Must have been expensive," my father commented, trying to sound casual. I hesitated, but decided there was no point in being evasive. "630,000. My parents exchanged another look, this one lingering and loaded with meaning. "How remarkable that you could afford such a purchase," my mother said, her voice tinged with surprise that felt insulting. "I've been saving for years," I replied, "and my business has been very successful." My father cleared his throat. "Well, I think we deserve some credit for that success, don't you? After all, we provided you with a foundation for everything you've achieved." I almost laughed. "What foundation would that be?" "Your upbringing, of course," my mother interjected. "The values we instilled, the education we provided. All of that contributed to your current success." "I put myself through college," I reminded them. "You refused to help when I chose the wrong school, remember?" My father waved his hand dismissively. "Water under the bridge. Family is what matters now." He took another sip of his drink. "Speaking of family matters, your mother and I have been having some investment issues lately." "Nothing serious," my mother added quickly. "Just not what we expected for our retirement funds." My stomach tightened with sudden understanding. This conversation had a purpose, and it wasn't catching up with their estranged daughter. "That's unfortunate," I said neutrally. "Have you spoken with a financial advisor?" "We have several options," my father said, setting down his glass. "But we believe in keeping solutions within the family." My mother stepped closer. "What your father is saying, Amanda, is that we expect you to help the family during this temporary setback." "Help how?" I asked, though I already suspected their answer. My father's expression turned serious. "We've been thinking about your condo. As parents who sacrificed everything for your education and upbringing, we feel it would be appropriate for you to sign the property over to us." The kitchen seemed to tilt slightly. "You want me to give you my condo?" "It would be an investment for all of us," my mother explained, as if discussing something perfectly reasonable. "We could manage the property, perhaps rent it out for income." "But where would I live?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. "You could stay with us until you find something more affordable," my father suggested magnanimously. "Or perhaps your boyfriend has space." I stared at them, searching for any sign they were joking. "Let me get this straight. You want me to give you my $630,000 condo that I saved for years to buy and move back home? After everything we sacrificed for your education, it's not an unreasonable request," my father insisted. "You didn't pay a penny toward my education," I reminded him. "I worked 3 jobs and took out student loans." My mother's eyes narrowed. "That's not how we remember it. We contributed significantly to your college expenses." "That's simply not true," I said firmly. Regardless, my father interjected. Children owe their parents for raising them. It's a matter of respect and gratitude. I'm grateful for the roof over my head growing up, I conceded. But that doesn't entitle you to my property. My father's face darkened. You might want to reconsider your position, Amanda. This decision will certainly affect how we structure our will. Your brother has always been more appreciative of family obligations. Are you threatening to disinherit me if I don't give you my condo? I asked incredulously. We're simply stating facts, my mother said coldly. I took a deep breath. The answer is no. I worked too hard for that property to simply hand it over. My mother's lips thinned to a tight line. I always knew you were selfish, but this is beyond disappointing. Ungrateful, my father spat. After everything we've done for you. The kitchen door swung open and Daniel appeared, his expression faltering as he sensed the tension. Everything okay in here? He asked cautiously. My mother's demeanor transformed instantly. Of course, sweetheart. We were just catching up with Amanda about her work. So interesting. My father forced a smile. We should rejoin the party. People will wonder where the guest of honor disappeared to. Daniel looked between us, clearly confused by the sudden shift. I offered him a tight smile, my hands shaking slightly as I excused myself to use the restroom. Once alone, I gripped the edge of the sink, taking deep breaths to calm my racing heart. The audacity of their request was staggering. In the mirror, my reflection showed flushed cheeks and wide eyes. When I emerged, Aunt Helen was waiting in the hallway. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost.
I'm fine, Elite.
Just a little warm in there. She squeezed my arm gently. Whatever they said to you in the kitchen, remember they don't control your life anymore. I nodded gratefully, considering whether to leave the party early. But that would mean letting my parents win, and more importantly, disappointing Daniel on his birthday. Instead, I plastered on a smile and rejoined the celebration, keeping a strategic distance from my parents for as long as possible. The remainder of the afternoon carried an uncomfortable undercurrent. My parents circulated among guests with painted-on smiles, but I noticed they were drinking more heavily than usual. My mother was on her fourth glass of wine, while my father had switched from scotch to straight vodka. From across the room, I caught snippets of my mother's increasingly loud commentary. Some children nowadays have no concept of family loyalty, she announced to an uncomfortable-looking couple. They take and take, but never give back. My father, meanwhile, pulled Daniel into a corner for what appeared to be an intense conversation. When they separated, Daniel looked troubled, his eyes avoiding mine when I tried to catch his attention. As the party progressed toward cake-cutting time, a caterer arranged 30 candles on an elaborate 3-tier creation. Guests gathered around, and my mother insisted on a family photo. Amanda, stand between your father and brother, she directed, her words slightly slurred. The photographer positioned us, and my parents gripped my shoulders with fingers that dug in painfully. Their smiles never reached their eyes. Perfect right family, my mother said through clenched teeth. Always supporting each other. After the photos, Daniel gave a short speech thanking everyone for coming. I noticed the strain in his voice, the way his eyes darted nervously between me and our parents. Family means everything to me, he concluded, raising his glass. To many more celebrations together. I tried to enjoy the cake and mingle with other guests, but I felt my parents' eyes following me. When Daniel began opening gifts in the living room, they approached again, cornering me behind the crowd of onlookers. Think about what we discussed, my mother whispered. We need an answer tonight. I already gave you my answer, I replied quietly but firmly. The answer is no. My father leaned closer. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? I don't owe you my home, I insisted. Lower your voice, my mother hissed, but her own voice was rising. You've always been so difficult. I'm not being difficult. I'm being reasonable. My father's face flushed dark red. We gave you everything growing up. Everything except support and unconditional love, I countered. Our voices had risen enough that nearby guests were turning to look. Conversations quieted as attention shifted to our corner. Daniel quickly set down the gift he was opening and made his way over. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his doctor's voice calm but authoritative. "Your sister is being unreasonable about a family matter," my mother said loudly. "Can we discuss this tomorrow?" Daniel suggested. "Today is supposed to be a celebration." "There's nothing to discuss," I said. "I've made my decision." My mother's hand trembled as she reached for another glass of wine from a passing server. "You see how she is, Daniel? Always thinking only of herself." Several guests were now openly staring. Aunt Helen moved closer, concern evident on her face. "Catherine, perhaps this isn't the time," she suggested gently to my mother. "Stay out of this, Helen," my father snapped. "This is between us and our daughter." The tension in the room was palpable. I decided the best course was to remove myself from the situation. "I should go," I said quietly to Daniel. "I don't want to ruin your party." As I turned to leave, my father stepped into my path. "We're not finished discussing this." "Yes, we are," I insisted, trying to step around him. What happened next occurred so quickly, I barely had time to register it. My mother grabbed an unopened champagne bottle from a nearby ice bucket. Daniel shouted, "Mom, don't," but it was too late. With surprising force for a woman her size, she swung the bottle at my head. The impact against my temple was explosive. Searing pain bloomed instantly, and warm liquid began streaming down my face. The room spun as I staggered backward, dimly aware of gasps and someone screaming. Through blurred vision, I saw Daniel rushing toward me. Blood dripped onto my cream-colored dress, spreading in a crimson stain. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth.
Jesus Christ, Mom.
Daniel's voice sounded distant as he pressed a cloth napkin against my wound. "Now look what you made me do," my mother said coldly, without a trace of remorse. "She's always been dramatic," my father announced to the shocked guests. "It's just a little bump." The room tilted again as Daniel guided me to sit down. Aunt Helen was on her phone, her voice urgent. "Yes, we need an ambulance." Assault with a bottle. The victim is conscious, but bleeding heavily from a head wound. "Don't call an ambulance," my father ordered. "This is a family matter." Daniel, still applying pressure to my wound, glared at him. "She needs medical attention. There's a possible concussion and she'll need stitches." Stephanie appeared with a first aid kit and began helping Daniel clean the wound. "The cut is deep," she murmured professionally. "Definitely needs stitches." Through the fog of pain and shock, I heard my mother explaining to concerned guests. She was being impossible. Anyone would have reacted the same way. "A normal reaction is not assault with a weapon," Aunt Helen shot back. "I want to leave," I managed to say to Daniel. "No ambulance. Just get me out of here." "I'll drive you to the emergency room," he insisted. "Stephanie, can you help me get her to my car?" As they helped me to my feet, the room swam again. Through the doorway, I caught a final glimpse of my parents. My mother was already pouring another glass of wine, while my father angrily dismissed concerned guests who were gathering their belongings to leave. "This is what happens when children don't respect their parents," I heard my mother say as Daniel and Stephanie guided me outside. The cool evening air helped clear my head slightly, but the throbbing pain intensified with each heartbeat. As we reached Daniel's car, I heard sirens in the distance, growing louder. "Someone must have called 911 anyway," Stephanie said, helping me into the back seat. "Good," Daniel replied grimly. "This isn't something that should be swept under the rug." As we pulled away from the house, I watched red and blue lights approaching in the side mirror. My childhood home grew smaller in the distance, blood still dripping down my face. Something had broken tonight that could never be repaired, and somehow I knew our family would never be the same again. The emergency room was bright and cold. A young doctor with kind eyes examined my wound while Daniel hovered nearby. 12 stitches closed the gash at my temple, and a CT scan confirmed a mild concussion but no skull fracture. "You were lucky," the doctor said. "Head injuries from bottles can be much worse." "Lucky isn't exactly how I describe this situation," I replied, wincing as she applied a bandage. After receiving discharge instructions and a prescription for pain medication, we headed to Daniel's apartment. Stephanie prepared the guest room while Daniel made tea in the kitchen. "I'm so sorry, Amanda," he said, placing a steaming mug in front of me. "I had no idea Mom would do something like that. I never thought she'd get physically violent either," I admitted. Emotional abuse was always more her style. Stephanie joined us, her nurse's training evident in how she'd arranged pillows to keep my head elevated. "I've only met your parents a few times before today," she said carefully. "But I had no idea they were like this." "They've always been controlling and manipulative," I explained, "but never violent until now." Daniel stared into his tea. "They asked me to talk to you about your condo before the party. Said they wanted to invest in your future by helping manage your property." He looked up, ashamed. I told them I wouldn't get involved, but I didn't realize how far they'd take it. "They're having money problems," I said. "Did you know that?" He nodded slowly. "Dad mentioned some investments that didn't work out. But I didn't think it was serious enough to justify asking for your property." "It's not," I confirmed. "Nothing justifies that." After taking pain medication, I slept fitfully in Daniel's guest room. Morning brought throbbing pain, dramatic bruising, and a phone full of notifications. 6 missed calls from my mother, from my father, and numerous texts. My mother's voicemail was accusatory. "Amanda, your behavior ruined Daniel's party. I expect an apology for causing such a scene. Call me back immediately." My father's text was equally delusional. "We need to finish our discussion about the condo. Your mother is upset about yesterday, but willing to move forward if you are reasonable." I blocked both their numbers, unable to process their complete lack of remorse. Jason called as soon as he heard what happened. "I'm coming over right now," he insisted, his voice tight with anger. "I'll be home later today," I assured him. "Stephanie's going to drive me." By afternoon, I was back in my own condo with Jason hovering attentively. My head throbbed despite the medication, and the bruising around my eye had deepened to purple and black. "I should have been there," Jason said for the 10th time, gently applying ice to reduce the swelling. "Then we might both be sporting matching concussions," I replied. The week that followed was a blur of pain, intermittent dizziness, and emotional processing. I took time off work, grateful for understanding colleagues who covered my appointments. Jason stayed over most nights, cooking meals and ensuring I followed the concussion recovery protocols. On Thursday, Daniel stopped by with a small stack of mail. "These came to the house for you," he explained. "I grabbed them when I went to get some of my things." I raised an eyebrow. "You're not staying with them anymore?" "After what happened?" "No way." He set the mail on my coffee table. "Stephanie and I are looking for our own place." As he left, I idly sorted through the envelopes. Most were junk mail, but one caught my attention. Official correspondence from First National Bank addressed to Trustee of Wright Family Trust. "That's weird," I murmured, opening it carefully. The letter inside referred to mortgage payment delinquency and requested the trustee contact the bank urgently. What confused me was why it had come to me. I had no knowledge of any family trust, let alone being its trustee. Curious, I opened my laptop and began searching public property records for my parents' house. What I found stunned me. The property wasn't owned by Robert and Catherine Wright, but by the Wright Family Trust, established 20 years earlier. Further digging revealed the trust had been created by my grandparents before their deaths. The most shocking detail, according to an amendment filed 4 years ago, I had been named trustee when I turned 30. "That can't be right," I said aloud, rereading the documents. I called Jason, who worked in finance and had some knowledge of trusts. "Is it possible I could be trustee without knowing it?" "It's unusual but not impossible," he replied. "If the original trustee didn't formally notify you of the change." "Do you have the trust documents?" "No, just what I found in public records." "You need to see the original documents. They'll specify your powers and responsibilities." The next morning, I contacted the law firm listed on the trust filing. After verifying my identity, they confirmed an appointment with Margaret Fisher, the attorney who had handled my grandparents' estate. Margaret was in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She greeted me with a firm handshake, her gaze lingering on my healing wound but asking no questions. "Ms. Wright, I've been expecting you for about 4 years now," she said as we sat at her office. "What do you mean?" She pulled a thick file from her cabinet. "When your grandmother amended the trust in 2021, she instructed us to wait for you to contact us. She was quite insistent that we not reach out proactively." "I didn't even know the trust existed," I admitted. Margaret nodded as if this confirmed something. "I suspected as much. Your grandmother was concerned about your father's financial management. The trust was originally established to hold the family home and certain investments, with your father as trustee. However, before she passed, your grandmother made a significant change."
She slid a document across the desk.
"This amendment names you as successor trustee upon your 30th birthday. You've actually been trustee for 4 years now." I stared at the paper, recognizing my grandmother's signature. "Why wouldn't my parents tell me about this?" "That," Margaret said carefully, "is something only they can answer. But I should inform you that as trustee, you have complete legal control over the trust assets, including the house." She handed me another document. "Your grandmother left this letter for you as well." The envelope was addressed simply, "For Amanda, when she learns the truth." Inside was a single page in my grandmother's elegant handwriting. "My dear Amanda, if you're reading this, you've finally discovered the trust. I've watched your father mismanage money his entire life, taking foolish risks and refusing wise counsel. The family home is too important to be lost to his schemes. I've named you trustee because, even as a young woman, you showed financial responsibility and integrity that your father lacks. The house should remain in the family for generations, not be squandered on risky investments. Use your judgment wisely. With love and confidence, Grandmother." "There's something else you should know," Margaret added as I finished reading. "Your parents have taken out multiple equity lines of credit against the property. According to these bank notices, they're several months behind on payments." She passed me more documents showing a troubling pattern. My parents had been borrowing against the house's equity for years, apparently without authority to do so. "How could they take out loans if they're not the trustees?" I asked. "They likely represented themselves as having authority," Margaret explained. "It appears no one verified the trust documents carefully. As trustee, you're not obligated to honor these unauthorized debts, though that creates other complications." I left the office with a thick folder of documents and a swirling mind. Back home, Jason helped me sort through the financial tangle. "Based on these statements," he said, examining the papers, "your parents have borrowed nearly $700,000 against the property's value. They've missed payments for 3 months. And look at these credit card statements that were sent to the trust address." The credit card bills showed multiple accounts, all maxed out with minimum payments barely being met. What were they spending all this money on? I wondered aloud. "Luxury purchases, mainly," Jason noted, pointing to line items. "High-end stores, expensive restaurants, several international vacations last year alone." I sat back, conflicted. On one hand, discovering I had power over my parents felt satisfying after years of their control. On the other hand, the responsibility was overwhelming. What should I do? I asked Jason. "That depends on what you want," he replied thoughtfully. "You could work with them to restructure the debt or what? Or you could sell the house. As trustee, that's within your rights." The idea landed with surprising weight. Sell my parents' house? The home they had wielded as a symbol of their superiority. The place where my mother had struck me with a champagne bottle just days ago? My phone buzzed with a new voicemail. Somehow my father had called from a different number, bypassing my block. "Amanda, this childish silence has gone on long enough. Your mother and I expect you to call us immediately to discuss the condo situation. Family obligations don't disappear just because you're having a tantrum." His entitled tone, completely ignoring the assault, made something snap inside me. The final message arrived as a text. "You've been an ungrateful burden since the day you were born. The least you could do is support your parents in their retirement. Call us. Now." Looking at their cruel words while holding documents proving their financial irresponsibility, I made my decision. Monday morning, I contacted Sarah Rodriguez, a real estate attorney recommended by Margaret Fisher. With bandages still on my temple, I explained the situation in her downtown office. "Let me understand correctly," Sarah said, reviewing the documents. "You're the legal trustee of a property where your parents live. They've taken unauthorized loans against it, and you want to know if you can sell it?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Is that possible?" She nodded confidently. "More than possible. As trustee, you have both the right and the authority to sell trust assets if you determine it's in the best interest of the trust. Given the delinquent loans and the property's financial state, you could make a strong case that selling is the most responsible option." "What about my parents? They're living there." "You would need to provide proper notice of eviction once the sale is complete. Standard procedure is 30 days, though you could negotiate longer terms with the buyer if needed." I considered this. "And legally, there's nothing my parents can do to stop it?" "They could contest your trusteeship, but the documentation is clear. Your grandmother explicitly named you trustee. Unless they can prove you're acting against the trust's interests, which would be difficult given the financial situation, they have limited recourse." Decision made. I listed the house with Patricia Collins, a respected colleague from a competing agency, to avoid any conflict of interest. We agreed on an aggressive marketing strategy. Colonial home in prestigious neighborhood, excellent schools, spacious grounds, Patricia summarized as we toured the property while my parents were out. Despite needed updates, we should price at $1.2 million minimum. Professional photographers captured the home's best features. The listing went live on Thursday with no notification to my parents. By Friday afternoon, we had 6 offers, the highest from a developer willing to pay $1.25 million cash with a quick closing. "This is an exceptional offer," Patricia advised. "No financing contingencies, 30-day close, and they're not requesting any repairs." I accepted the offer and signed the paperwork that evening. Only then did I instruct Patricia to send formal notice to my parents as the property's occupants. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone exploded with calls and texts, which I continued to ignore. Daniel called, shocked. "Amanda, did you really put Mom and Dad's house up for sale? They're absolutely losing their minds." "I did," I confirmed. "And it's already under contract." Silence stretched across the line. "I don't understand. How can you sell their house?" I explained about the trust, my grandmother's decision, and the financial mismanagement. Daniel listened in stunned silence. "I had no idea," he finally said. "But Amanda, where will they go?" "That's for them to figure out," I replied, surprising myself with my detachment. "They've had 4 years of living in a house they knew wasn't theirs, taking out loans they couldn't repay." The following Monday, my parents appeared at my office. I was discussing a listing with clients when my assistant interrupted, looking flustered. "There's a couple insisting on seeing you immediately. They say they're your parents, and it's an emergency." I apologized to my clients and stepped into the reception area. My mother gasped audibly at the still visible bruising on my face. "What have you done?" my father demanded loudly. "How dare you list our home without consulting us?" "This is not appropriate," I said calmly. "I'm with clients." "We don't care about your clients," my mother shrieked. "You're selling our home out from under us." Other agents and clients were staring. I signaled to security, who approached immediately. "Please escort these people out," I requested. "They're disrupting business." "You can't do this," my father shouted as the security guard led them toward the door. "We're your parents." "We'll contest this in court," my mother added. "You'll regret this, Amanda." After they left, I returned to my clients, hands shaking but voice steady. "I apologize for the interruption. Family dispute. Now, about the master bathroom options." That afternoon, I filed for a temporary restraining order based on the assault at Daniel's party and their appearance at my workplace. The judge granted it immediately upon seeing my medical records and the police report filed after the party. With the restraining order in place and the house sale proceeding, I agreed to meet my parents at a neutral location with Daniel present. We selected a coffee shop midway between our homes, with Daniel arriving first to secure a quiet corner table. My parents arrived looking disheveled and angry. My father's normally immaculate appearance had given way to wrinkled clothes and uncombed hair. My mother's makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. "You had no right to sell our home," my father began immediately, his voice shaking with rage. "I have every legal right," I replied calmly. "As trustee of the Wright Family Trust, I'm authorized to make decisions regarding trust assets." "What nonsense is this?" my mother demanded. "What trust?" I placed my grandmother's letter and the trust documents on the table. The trust grandmother established 20 years ago. The one that names me trustee as of my 30th birthday. The one that legally owns the house you've been living in. My father snatched up the documents, his face reddening as he read. "This can't be legal. Your grandmother would never do this to us." "She did exactly this," I said. "Because she knew you couldn't be trusted with money." My mother grabbed the letter, her hands trembling as she read my grandmother's words. "This is a forgery. It has to be." "It's not," Daniel interjected quietly. "I called grandmother's old friend Judith yesterday. She confirmed everything. She was a witness when grandmother amended the trust." My father slammed his fist on the table. "We'll contest this in court. No judge will allow a daughter to throw her parents out of their home." "My attorney disagrees," I replied. "The documentation is clear and legally binding. But if you want to waste money on legal fees, that's your choice." "Where are we supposed to go?" my mother asked, her voice suddenly small. "We've lived in that house for 35 years. For the first time, I felt a flicker of compassion. "I've instructed my attorney to offer you a proposal. The house is selling for $1.25 million. After paying off the unauthorized loans you took, there will be approximately $550,000 remaining. I'm prepared to give you 30% of that amount, enough for a comfortable new start." 30%, my father scoffed. "Of our own house." "Not your house," I corrected. "A house you've been living in without legal ownership. A house you nearly lost to foreclosure due to loans you couldn't repay." "What's the catch?" my mother asked suspiciously. "Two conditions. First, a public apology for the assault at Daniel's party. Second, acknowledgement that you have no claim to my condo or any other property I own." My father's face twisted with rage. "Apologize? For disciplining an ungrateful child." "You hit me with a champagne bottle," I reminded him. "That's assault, not discipline." "You provoked me," my mother insisted. "Anyone would have reacted the same way." Daniel stared at her incredulously. "Mom, no one reacts to a disagreement by smashing a bottle into someone's head. That's not normal or acceptable." "We're not apologizing for something that was your fault," my father declared. I gathered the documents and stood up. "Then the house will be sold, the loans paid off, and the remaining proceeds will go back into the trust. You have until closing to vacate the property." "You can't do this to us," my mother wailed. "We're your parents. The house will be sold," I repeated. "What happens next is your choice." As I turned to leave, my father called after me, "You'll regret this, Amanda. No one will ever love you when they learn how you treat family." Daniel followed me outside, his expression troubled. "Are you sure about this, Amanda? They assaulted me, tried to take my home, and still refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing," I pointed out. "What would you have me do?" He sighed heavily. "I don't know. It just feels wrong somehow." "It feels wrong because we were raised to believe parents are always right and children always owe them, regardless of how they behave," I said gently. "That's not how healthy relationships work." The following weeks were tense. My parents made desperate attempts to stop the sale, including a hastily filed lawsuit that was promptly dismissed. They called my friends, colleagues, and even Jason's workplace, spreading stories about my mental instability and vindictive nature. None of it worked. The sale closed on schedule, and my parents moved their belongings to a small apartment across town. They refused further contact with me, though they maintained a relationship with Daniel, continuously trying to use him as an intermediary. As for me, I donated a portion of the proceeds to a local domestic violence shelter. The rest remained in the trust, waiting for decisions I wasn't yet ready to make. Despite the satisfaction of standing my ground, I couldn't escape a lingering sadness for the loving family I never had. 6 months passed. Spring turned to summer, then autumn. The physical evidence of my mother's assault faded completely, though unexpected loud noises sometimes still made me flinch. The emotional healing proved more complex, with layers of childhood trauma rising to the surface during my weekly therapy sessions. Family estrangement comes with complicated grief, Dr. Bennett explained during one session. You're mourning both the relationship you lost and the relationship you never had. Those words resonated deeply. I had spent years pretending my parents' behavior was normal, adjusting myself to fit their impossible standards. Now I was learning to recognize the manipulation tactics that had shaped my childhood. I invested part of the trust money into expanding my business, hiring an assistant, and moving to a larger office. Work provided satisfying focus amid the emotional turbulence. My colleagues noticed the change in my confidence, the way I no longer apologized for taking up space. My relationship with Daniel evolved too. Initially strained by my decision about the house, we gradually rebuilt on healthier terms. He and Stephanie got engaged in September, and he asked me to help plan their wedding. We're keeping it small, he explained over dinner at my condo. And we're not inviting Mom and Dad. Because of me? I asked, surprised. He shook his head. Because of them. After everything that happened, I started therapy too. I've been unpacking a lot about our childhood. The golden child discovers he wasn't so golden after all, I suggested gently. More like the golden child realizes the pedestal was actually a cage, he replied. They're still calling me daily, expecting me to fix their problems. When I set boundaries, they turn nasty. My parents remained unrepentant. They refused a therapist's suggestion of family counseling and continued to blame me for their financial situation. Though I occasionally felt pangs of guilt, I reminded myself that they had options they chose not to take. With the remaining trust money, I established a new trust for Daniel's future children's education. So history doesn't repeat itself, I explained when showing him the paperwork. Jason and I grew closer through the ordeal. He had seen me at my most vulnerable and stood firmly by my side. We began discussing cohabitation, then marriage, approaching the future with careful optimism. You know what I love most about you? He said one evening as we walked along the Charles River. Your resilience. You don't just survive difficult things, you find ways to grow from them. My world expanded in other ways too. Without fear of parental judgment, I reconnected with extended family members who had been kept at a distance. Aunt Helen introduced me to cousins I barely knew, creating new family bonds based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I developed friendships without the constant worry that someone might not meet my parents' approval. I took up painting, something my mother had discouraged as impractical, and discovered unexpected joy in creative expression. The hardest lesson was recognizing how patterns from my childhood affected my adult relationships. My people-pleasing tendencies, fear of confrontation, and tendency to take responsibility for others' emotions all stemmed from years of walking on eggshells around my parents. Breaking generational patterns is sacred work, my therapist reminded me. You're not just healing yourself, you're preventing these dynamics from affecting future generations. When I reflected on my decision to sell the house, I acknowledged its complexity. Had it been partly motivated by revenge?
Probably.
Was it also the financially responsible choice given the circumstances? Definitely. Life rarely offers morally simple solutions, especially when family is involved. I learned that sometimes walking away isn't enough. Some toxic relationships require more definitive closure, particularly when the other parties refuse to respect boundaries. I had given my parents multiple opportunities to acknowledge their behavior and make amends. Their continued entitlement made my decision necessary, if painful. The most important lesson was understanding that family is defined by behavior, not blood. The people who truly cared about my well-being had supported me through this difficult time without conditions or expectations. That was family in the truest sense. Family doesn't hit you with champagne bottles when you don't give them what they want, as Jason put it simply. I built a chosen family of friends who celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported me through challenges without keeping score. I learned to recognize love that didn't come with strings attached. On the anniversary of the confrontation at Daniel's party, I took a personal day and hiked to a scenic overlook outside the city. As I watched the sun setting over Boston, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for most of my life. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but for the first time, it was truly mine to choose. I had broken free from the cycle of seeking approval I would never receive and learned to validate my own choices. Some might view my story as tragic, the permanent fracturing of a family. I see it differently. It's a story about finding the courage to demand respect, about refusing to accept abuse disguised as love, about building a life defined by authenticity rather than fear. If you're watching this and struggling with toxic family dynamics, remember that you deserve relationships that build you up rather than tear you down. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for your well-being. And sometimes, the family that matters most is the one you create for yourself. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect yourself from toxic family members? What helped you find the strength to stand your ground? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that healing is possible, even from the deepest wounds.